It is the exact same amount of work that I assign to all my other classes. So if I have a 15-week class, they get exactly the same homework. So I just want you guys to know I'm not trying to pile all this work on you. I just need you to do the same thing, but in a half the time period. Okay, so let's talk about some new stuff here. We are going to talk first about combining functions. Now my goal today is to get through assignment 3 up to number 16. I mean, after today, you guys will be able to do up to number 16 on that assignment 3.
So will the game plan be that we'll finish assignment 3 and then also assignment 4 by?
We may start assignment 4. We definitely won't finish it.
But it will still be due?
No.
No? Okay.
Probably the only thing that will be due this week will be assignment 3. Because I don't think we'll be able to get through assignment 4 on Thursday. We need to finish assignment 3. So probably we'll just have assignment 3 due.
Are they, do you go on and do them, or if we're able to finish, do you go online?
Yeah, if you're able to do stuff on your own, that's fine. But I don't expect you to. I'm not going to require it. Okay, so combining functions. So you have two functions. They're going to give us two functions now instead of one function. They're going to call them f of x and g of x. Okay, now we can make 4 combinations. Okay? Now what are 4 operations we can do?
Multiplication, subtraction, division, and
Addition.
Addition, yes. So addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Okay? Those are 4 things we can do. Now, if you want to add 2 functions, you can just add them together. Okay? So the addition function is called f plus g of x. Okay? And that is equal to just the sum of those 2 functions, f of x plus g of x. Okay, so just take one function, add the other one to it.
But you would set it up in the first manner.
Well, that's the first one is just what they'll call it. They'll call it f plus g of x.
Oh, okay.
When they say f plus g, they mean just take f of x and add
Gotcha.
g of x. Okay, now how do we add stuff with x's in it, variables in it?
You gotta find out what the variable is.
They'll tell you what the variable is. It'll be the same variable. So how do you add, like, stuff with variables? What's the magic word there? How do you add stuff with variables? What's the rule you have to follow? Like, can I add 2x and 3y?
No. Oh, like sign.
They have to be, what is that called? Combining like terms.
That's it.
Yes,
That's it.
you can only add like terms. That's what I was looking for.
It's like the tip of everybody's tongue.
Yes. You want to add the like terms. You can only add the like terms. Okay, so you can only add the x squareds, you can add the x's, you can add the constant, like terms. What about subtraction? We'll call that f minus g of x. Okay, you just take the first function here, which is f of x, and you subtract g of x. Now, this is the one everybody messes up because you have to subtract all of g of x, all the terms of g of x. Okay? So if g of x has like 3 terms, you need to subtract all 3 of them. Not just the first one. Okay? I'll show you in a minute. But write that down. Subtract all of g. Because that's what people forget to do. Okay, and then multiplication. Okay, then you just multiply the 2 functions. Okay, and then division is f over g multiplication is probably the hardest. Division is the easiest because you just take f of x, you put it in the numerator of a fraction, you put g of x in the denominator. You do not need to simplify anything. So just plop f of x over g of x. Do not do anything else. Okay? If they are showing you other things in the example, like they're going further with that, it is unnecessary.
So you do not.
You do not need to simplify. You can simplify, but you do not need to. Okay? Now, f of x over g of x, the division function, is the only one where they're going to ask you about the domain. What would the domain of that be? Oh gosh, I'm hitting all kinds of buttons here.
It would be f, right?
Come on.
Minimize to your desktop.
What?
Minimize to your desktop and bring it back up. That'll refresh it. Or not.
No, that's what I'm trying to get rid of.
I thought that would have worked.
What's this modified profile thing is bugging me? Why is it doing that? What is that? Oh well. That's so sad. Alright, second. Okay. Domain of f over g. What do we need to worry about with the domain of a fraction?
Well, it wants to know x, right?
It wants to know what x values we can have, yes. But what do we need to worry about? What do you have to worry about when you have the domain of something and it has fractions?
No zero in the denominator?
No 0 in the denominator, right. So you need what's in the denominator to not be 0, right? You can't have 0 in the denominator. And what's in the denominator here is g of x. So what I need here is I need g of x not equal to 0. Okay? So your domain would be all numbers except the ones that would make g of x equal to 0. Okay, now for today's participation paper, let's do the first problem on assignment 3. Now, some of you guys left every day. Remember, we'll either get in groups or I'll have you guys write something down. Some of you guys did not turn those in. last Thursday. So if you forgot to turn in your paper from last Thursday, hopefully somebody still has it, you can turn it in.
She didn't show back up.
She didn't show back up,
Yeah,
but she
she
has the
left.
paper.
For us three.
Remind me about that after class.
Okay.
Okay? If you guys still have a paper to turn in from last time, make sure you turn that in.
Now, if you happen to forget one time, or if somebody in your group does, do you get points deducted the next time for that, or like participation points?
Just make it your job to make sure that gets turned in. So if you don't trust somebody else to turn it in, then make sure you're the one who
Okay.
can. Okay?
You said go to assignment 3.
Okay, I also need to pass around the sign-in sheet, so I'll pass that out. So if you guys want to work individually on this, or if you want to work together and just work on one problem, either way it's fine. But let's start with assignment 3, and let's look at number 1 here. Now, when we're doing stuff in class, okay, I would prefer that you guys watch what I'm doing and not the example, okay? Because the examples are fine, but sometimes they have a lot of gobbledygook that's unnecessary, okay? Alright, so let's look at number 1, okay, and you can work on your problem, or you can just follow along with me. So f of x plus g of x, remember I just want to add f of x plus g of x. Okay? So my f of x is x plus 7, and my g of x is x minus 7. So I want to do x plus 7 for f of x, and then I want to add x minus 7. Okay? So I just take what f of x is equal to, I take what g of x is equal to, I just add them together. Okay? Now I've got like terms here, so I can add my x's. I add x, and that gives me
2x.
not x squared. X squared would be x times x. X plus x is 2x. And then I can add plus 7 minus 7, which is 0, so that actually cancels itself out. Okay? So my answer for f plus g of x is 2x. Now what if they ask me for f minus g, which is the next thing they're going to ask me? F of x minus g of x. Okay?
We did that, but when I write, I can't. How did you get your 2x now?
I did like terms. My like terms are x, and if I add x plus x, I get 2x.
What happened to your stuff?
So I've got plus 7 and minus 7 cancel each other out.
Okay.
Alright, then I have f of x minus g of x. Here's where I need to be careful the way I write this. So f of x is x plus 7. Then I need to subtract g of x. And I need to subtract the whole thing. So I'm going to put that in parentheses and tell myself to subtract the whole thing.
Now it's a factor of the distributive property. We got to distribute the negative.
Then I need to distribute the negative, correct? Okay? So it is of the utmost importance when you subtract g of x that you distribute that negative to everything in g of x. Because I got to subtract everything. If I just write it as minus x minus 7, then that's not right, because then I would only be subtracting the x.
Are you talking about the third line down on that?
So I've got to write that as minus parentheses x minus 7 to tell myself that I need to subtract x. And I also need to subtract minus 7. So subtracting minus 7 is really like adding 7. So I've got two negatives here. Okay? So I've got minus x, and then minus 7. Minus minus is plus. You guys see that?
you take it out of the parentheses once you combine that minus minus.
Yes. I'm distributing the minus to both things.
And that's what you mean by subtract all times G
Yeah.
X.
Then I can combine my like terms, my x and my minus x,
Cancel each
Yeah,
other
cancel
out.
each other out,
So you
and then I've got plus 7 is 14.
Now, can you also do this on your spreadsheet?
No. These are, nothing on this homework is going to use the graphing calculator. So we're gonna put that aside for now, and we'll be back to it on the next homework. But
That's
this-
my safe haven.
Well, it's just the nature of this stuff that this stuff is more like algebra manipulation stuff on paper. Okay? Alright, so I got my answers for the first two parts. My first part was 2x. My second part is 14.
Is that what you mean?
Yes, I saved the notes and also the video. Did you guys watch the video? YouTube, there's an announcement about it. Look on the announcements on the course home. Okay? What about f times g? Now this is kind of weird that they didn't put the multiplication symbol here, but they mean, when they just say fg, they mean f times g. So I gotta multiply. So I want to multiply. It's gonna thing sometimes does not cooperate. And I need them to update the software. Yeah, good luck with that, right? Okay, so f g of x means f times g. I want to multiply f of x, which is x plus 7, times g of x, which is x minus 7.
This looks familiar.
This looks familiar, hopefully. What is the magic word here? FOIL. Yes. Magic word is FOIL. If you guys do not know what FOIL is, you need to start Googling. Okay? What does FOIL stand for?
First, outside, inside.
You multiply the first two, which is x times x.
Or x squared.
Okay? What does the O stand for? The outer, which is x times minus 7.
Or negative 7x.
Okay, so x times x is x squared. X times negative 7 is negative 7x. What does the I stand for? Inner, which is plus 7 times your x again, which is 7x plus 7x. And your last, which is 7 times minus 7.
Negative 49.
Okay? Does that seem relatively familiar to everybody? We should know how to do that? Good. Okay, then I can combine the two middle terms, my x terms. Now this doesn't always happen, but in this case, my x minus 7x and my plus 7x cancel out. So those are going to go away. And I'm going to be left with just x squared minus 49. Okay, so when you multiply these, lots of times you're going to have to FOIL. Make sure you're foiling. Okay, so that is my answer for part C. Now, to get the power up here, I need to type the x, and then click the superscript button up here. Gives me power. Okay? Then to get out of that, you want to click the right arrow, and then continue typing. If you don't click the right arrow, it'll put everything up there. The arrow up, down, left, right on the keyboard.
Oh, on the
Yeah.
keyboard, gotcha.
Now, the shortcut for the superscript is you do Control up arrow, and that'll put it up.
Oh, cool.
Control down will put something as a subscript. It'll put it below. I know all the good tricks here. Maybe not all of them, but all the ones I know. Okay, last one is F over G.
Actually, okay.
And
We feel your pain.
I don't know what's wrong with this thing here. There it is. There it is. Okay, f of x over g of x. Do not make this more complicated than it needs to be. Because in the examples, sometimes they tend to make things too complicated, especially in this case. Put f of x on the numerator and g of x in the denominator and stop. Okay? Do not do anything else. Trust me, you do not need to do anything else.
Well, that's good, 'cause I don't know how to do anything else
No.
now.
I know I don't need to do anything else, but just to refresh my skills, that would be 2, wouldn't it?
Hmm?
That would be 2, wouldn't it? If you were to do any further, the
X
answer.
plus 7 over x minus 7?
The x's cancel
You'd
out.
have to rationalize it. I don't...
Well, the x's would cancel out because x
No,
divided by
you
x.
can't cancel fractions like that when there's when there's adding and subtracting.
Oh, that's
the
right,
adding
because
and subtracting
the-
would supersede the fraction, so you gotta keep
Right.
that together. You'd have to do a lot of manipulation to be able to simplify that.
Okay, I understand now. In that middle column, you got F, parentheses.
F of x.
I totally forgot those two. Both
No,
those
that is
same.
the function. F of x is the function x plus 7. That's what they told you up at the top.
What's the right way of entering this?
You have to hit the fraction thing first.
Oh, okay.
Okay, technically, well, that's a good, it's a good to hit the fraction thing first. Guys, let me show you some tricks here. You can hit the fraction button first. The slash button on the keypad next to numlock, the slash button will make a fraction. Or let's say that I'm typing along and I realize I need a fraction and I want the fraction to encompass everything I typed. Highlight it and then hit a slash. So highlight x plus 7 with my mouse, then hit the slash, and it'll make that whole thing a fraction. That is a good trick because sometimes you're typing something and then you're like, oh, I need a fraction. I don't want to retype everything. No, in this case, it's not that big of a deal. Sometimes if you don't want to start over, highlight it and then hit the slash button or the fraction button. Make everything a fraction. Okay? Okay, 3 of the 4 functions have domain negative infinity to positive infinity. That means all real numbers. Which one does not?
Yeah.
Division, right? Told you guys that before. Division is the one you need to worry about the domain. Okay, now what is the domain of the division function?
A.
Okay? So my division function has a denominator of x minus 7. So for the domain, I need that denominator to not be 0. So I need x minus 7 to not be 0. So what would make that happen? What do I need to exclude?
You gotta put the 7 on the opposite side.
X is not equal to
7.
7, because 7 minus 7 would be 0.
Yep.
Okay? So how do I say x is not equal to 7 in interval notation?
Negative infinity to 7.
Negative infinity to 7.
Union.
Union.
7. Infinity.
7 to positive infinity.
Now why wouldn't you say negative infinity to 6 bracket and then
What about 6 and a half? What about 6 3/4?
that makes
What about
sense now.
6.9999999?
What's that U called?
Union.
They weren't asking for interval notation, they just say all the numbers.
That's how you do say
Yes,
that.
all real numbers except 7 would be the same thing, yeah. Now, they did ask for interval notation here.
They just made it common.
They're not super consistent with the way they say things. But they do expect you to know that there's different ways of saying things that mean the same thing. The problem with math is that different people came up with a lot of ideas. And whenever somebody comes up with an idea, they get to decide how they're going to say it. And so, sometimes there's different ways of saying things. Because different people made them up, and they can mean the same thing. All right. You guys want to try the next one as practice? Number 2. All right. So we think we got this. Let's try number 2.
Now, will we turn in number 1 as well, or just number 2? Because I'll have to copy this into my notes. I just didn't know which one you wanted us to turn in.
If you just want to turn in one of them, like if you were putting one in your notes.
Okay, well, I was planning to turn this one in, but then I thought, oh, well, okay,
If
so
you
I'll
wanna
just
keep
do
that
another
as
one.
your note,
Okay.
If you want to keep one in your notes and turn in the other one, that's good. That works for me.
You just need a page to show we did work.
Just give something to tell me that you were paying attention and not on Facebook.
I'm a multitasker.
Not that you guys would ever do that.
Oh, no.
Remember when Farmville was real big a couple years ago? People would just sit in class and play Farmville the whole time.
It's still pretty popular.
They still do that?
Oh my gosh, now there's Farmville
No,
2.
it's Candy Crush.
Oh gosh.
Don't even get me
The amount
going
of
on
messages
that.
I get about that stupid thing.
There's actually 500,000 of them, so.
What?
There's actually 500,000 different ones of them, so.
Yeah.
What?
And they're all copies of each
500,000
other.
years ago.
Alright, so let's try number 2.
You want to do this on the paper?
Do one in your notes for an example and one on the paper to turn in. I don't care which one. But one that you have for an example later and one that you want to turn in. Do one of these problems to turn in for participation points? Yeah, you can turn in 2. Do you remember from the paper?